John Semirow, was called away unexpectedly on business. He is not here. So, with your kind permission and indulgence, this evening I will be performing the part of Felix. In a few moments we will begin. Enjoy the show.
Whose side are you on?
Everybody's. That's only fair.
Liv, this is the most important night of our lives. The whole world may be trying to reach us. We've got 1,000 things to think about, and I expect my wife to show a little loyalty. Anybody could have called. If you London or Sweden or Moscow, they have great respect for me in Moscow.
Not enough to pay royalty. Answer now. The number you have reached is no longer a working number. This is a recorded message. Evening.
Hey, come back here.
Liv, would you please tell my baby brother to keep his voice down?
Kate, who was that?
Does it really matter? Since sooner or later somebody was bound to remember he had a wife and family, I took the phone off the hook.
Sooner or later? How long's it been off?
Since the 11 o'clock news. And if you're going to shout, try and do it in a whisper. There's no need to wake mother.
You mean she's asleep?
After all this, she doesn't know about all this. I called Hazel and she agreed tomorrow was soon enough. There's no need for her to lose another night's sleep over him. Not after all these years.
I don't believe it. One of the most important men in the whole world is dead. Our own father. And all you can think about is everybody should get a good night's sleep.
What did you expect me to do? Go outside and blow taps?
Children, what on earth do you find to fight about? And at this hour of the night?
Sorry, Mother.
We thought you were asleep.
Was it a nice movie?
We didn't stay.
Oh, what a shame after that long way to Avenue B. Hey, quiet. Why is the phone off the hook? Someone may have been trying to call us.
That's what we were fighting about.
Kate, what on? Meryl, Liv, is something wrong?
I think you better sit down, Mother.
What is it, Meryl? Now, don't try and find any three-syllable words. Just tell me.
It's Father. He's dead.
Meryl, you fool!
Dead? How he must hate that.
Not much again. He's just missing.
How?
He was flying a private plane.
Somebody else's, naturally.
Hush, Kate, go on, Meryl.
He'd been lecturing at this university in Florida. Apparently, a trustee thought he might like to take his plane out for a run.
That was this evening.
I'm telling this, Liv.
Just meant, well, they did wait a couple of hours.
They tried radio signals, and there were ships in the area. Finally, they notified the Coast Guard, and about 20 miles out, they found the wreckage. It's quite a lot of it, for a little plane.
And his body.
No bodies. They said it often happens.
Maybe months from now, the tide will bring him up, and I'll have to identify him by his cavities. Liv, for heaven's sake. Well, that's how they do it. Says so in the books and everything. I wonder who pays Dennis to go on trips like that.
Was he alone?
Well, actually,
I must be after Dennis someday. Of course he wasn't alone. Was he ever in his life alone after 6 o'clock at night?
she was the daughter of the man who owned the plane. I gather she's been part of a reception committee at the university.
Very blonde. You know the way we get to Florida.
He always liked blondes. He called them his summer girls. Well, I guess if it had to happen, well, I suppose that's not a very proper thought. Do turn out the lights when you come up, children.
Mother, you're not going to bed now, are you? Just going to bed?
Well, I might read for a while. Why, did you want something?
But Father, we have to plan things for tomorrow, for the funeral.
Oh, can they have a funeral if he's in the ocean?
There'll be a memorial service or something.
You could call the Coast Guard. Maybe they'd drop a wreath for us. I understand they're very helpful that way. Good night.
One of the great authors of the 20th century.
Who hasn't published a book in over 6 years?
People of the world have read his work.
Well, maybe older.
Mother, whatever happened between the two of you? You're still his wife. Well, his widow. Come on, Liv, we better call Hazel on our phone.
I don't think I even have a black dress. Of course, there's always my leotard.
Hazel must know the name of his bank and its lawyer.
And you better get the name of his dentist, too. Well, just in case.
I don't suppose there's any chance Merrill was adopted.
Don't be hard on him, Kate. He's still trying to find himself.
I wish he'd look in the want ads. He marries Liv and that's his last day's work.
Merrill's like me, a normal, conventional, and everyday sort of person.
Merrill, take him out the front porch and you could get arrested for littering the streets.
He's just so scared of what people will think. The way I always was.
And who scared you?
Not your father. You don't remember your grandmother, do you? An awful woman. She was always wanting something turned on or off or down. And yet, your father married me.
Mother, he wasn't bringing Christmas packages to an orphanage. He married you. And he deserted you. And he wrote a book about it.
Writers are like that. At least he dedicated it to me.
Mother, you're starting to talk in that over-the-hills and faraway voice that drives me right up the wall.
Good for you, Kate. I worry about you sometimes, that you don't really see me. You seem to have me mixed up with, I don't know, Patient Griselda, Penelope pining for Ulysses, with touches of the little match girl. I'm not like that at all.
How many times has he been home these past few years? Twice? 3 times? Never longer than a week. There's still laundry wrapped up in the cellar from when he came back from World War II.
He was here for the first 10 years. He saw you and Merrill born.
And we know what he thought about that. He spelled it all out in Children of Lazarus, about burping me and having to change me. Did you know that Lazarus is on the Brooklyn High School reading list?
Wouldn't he be pleased to know he's required reading?
Oh, sure. Except there I'll be, teaching that darn book every spring. I'll be turning old and gray, which, by the way things are going, will probably be next Tuesday, with 35 acne cases still seeing me before I was housebroken.
That's not a reason to hate somebody, Kate. And you do hate him.
Look, I take saccharin in my coffee. I don't smoke more than a pack of cigarettes a day, and I look both ways before I cross the street. Just let me have some fun.
It's just that you're fooling yourself. The years will go by and you'll find you've been hating all men.
Why not? You're certainly not recommending marriage.
I had a very good marriage.
All by yourself?
Kate, sit down for a minute. Now, sit down. I know it's hard to understand about a father, someone you have no choice about. But I chose to fall in love with that skinny, young Australian immigrant. So if you feel deserted, blame me. I picked him. I wish I could make you see what my life was like then. This house, the whole world, not one thing is the same.
When did they change the marriage ceremony? Isn't it still till death do you part?
Death doesn't part people, Kate. Living together does that. This has always been a comfortable room in your own home. But to me, it started as the lobby of a boarding house. Clumps of spinsters and old maid bachelors dozing after dinner. All of us just waiting for another day to be over. While upstairs, he was writing night after night. And me, too shy to even talk to him without breaking into blotches. Trying to collect the rent, handle the complaints, whatever you may think of your father. I haven't had to do that since we married. And I thank God for him every night of my life.
How long was he here before?
We got married, Kate? That's the word. I'd assure you, we couldn't have done anything else. Not with your grandmother watching. Not that I wouldn't gladly have been bad with Archer, only I didn't know what to give. There weren't any of those books then.
There are now. I think he's written every possible detail.
Not to be dirty, Kate. I think he honestly believed that kind of ignorance was wrong. That first spring, we walked to the bridge Saturday nights. He wanted so much to cross the river, to meet exciting and wonderful people. Instead, he was stuck in Brooklyn with a plain girl and a pile of Latin translations he'd have to correct before Monday. God, how he hated teaching. I remember he had a black bow tie, one of those made-up things on an elastic. One morning, he walked into his class, and every one of those rich boys was wearing the same bow tie. It was considered funny to laugh at the poor in those days.
Every teacher gets practical jokes.
But the next day, Kate, after the joke is over, and he still has to go on wearing that same bow tie.
You don't if you marry the landlady's daughter.
He didn't marry me. We trapped him. He walked me in from the garden one night. It was dark and he kissed me. Or maybe he didn't. Maybe I kissed him. I loved him so much. Only for once your grandmother hadn't gone to bed yet. She was spying on us from the dining room, holding that door back an inch. And then she came in. She was one of those respectable, dirty-minded women. She said, we have to get married. And then your father said he wanted to marry me. He was a gentleman, and I trapped him.
But he didn't have to go through with it. Lord knows he walked out on enough women later on.
Your grandmother thought of that. If there was a scandal, he'd lose his job without any money. She could have him put in jail. Maybe even thrown out of the country. He wasn't a citizen then. You could get married quickly in Maryland in those days. After it was all over, he just sort of sighed. He'd never cross any rivers now.
Except he did, with the first royalty check.
But he wasn't an eager boy then. He was a tired, overworked man.
That still doesn't explain why. You're not so terrible to live with. Gran was dead. You didn't even ask any questions. Why did he leave?
I think I bored him. I don't blame him. I would have left me too. Kate, I'm tired. Turn up the lights when you come. How old was the girl with him? The one from the college?
24. She was either doing graduate work or slow.
24. No, I never thought I'd end up being his widow.
I still think he was a louse.
Come on, you can't just stand on the doorstep. It's a little premature for me to carry you over it.
I'm here. I'm really here. It's incredible.
Considering what we've been through this past week, I think it's incredible we're anywhere. Kate, Meryl, Liv,
The house where you wrote your first novel.
and rewrote it and tore it up and rewrote it. Where is there anybody?
But it isn't ugly. It isn't the way I thought it would be at all.
You sound disappointed. Were you hoping to rescue me from a slum?
It's just that it goes against all my research.
I keep forgetting that American girls are so thorough. It's like being in love with a computer.
Computer
whizzed right past me. My God, they hung me.
Maria Maserini portrait, 1955. Yours was the sexiest chapters in it.
She lied. Well, exaggerated. I couldn't have done half the things she claimed, not without acrobatic training. Now, to get some clothes and a checkbook. We can't expect to hitchhike all over New York.
You're sure, aren't you? About us? Because I do love you. I'll love you forever.
Well, actually, the odds aren't too bad. Forever with me can't be too terribly long. Oh, I'm hale and hearty, just not immortal.
Maybe not.
And people say the younger generation have no tact.
I'm not the younger generation. I'm me. And I love you. None of you are the ones who have understood you. Not the way I do. I do know you, Elsie. Every part of you.
You haven't exposed every part of me yet, and a good thing, too.
It's just because your generation is so hung up on morality. Don't put me down, Archie. I'm not a fool.
I never thought you were. It's just that I'm afraid you'll disappear. Daryl, I haven't been in love for such a long, long time. I've forgotten how much I missed it.
Oh, Archie, I'm so happy. And I thought of the first thing to do, I mean. We'll get cleaned up here.
Here, you're out of your pretty little head.
You said your wife was very understanding.
Understanding, yes. Saintly, no.
But if we go anything at night, people will find out we're alive.
I suppose it wouldn't be very tactful if the first she learned of us was in the evening paper.
Oh, Archie, we're going to have a wonderful life together. I'll be everything to you. A wife, a student, secretary. I can hardly wait. I hear bells.
You're supposed to hear bells. That's what you get for falling in love.
It could be important.
Well, you're not on duty yet. Look, one of the few things you learn as you get older is that the odds are against any interruption being important. Now look, you take the bathroom on the 3rd floor, I'll take the one on the 2nd, and the first one dry calls a cab.
They seem to have gone away.
You're right, darling.
How enchanting the first stage of love always is, and how disappointing that it never lasts.
That's for the children of Lazarus.
You're absolutely right, chapter 6.
You're telling me the right quote.
Excuse me. Is anybody here? My name is Felix Hackaday. I'm not really housebreaking. Hazel, Mrs. Dunn, she said you don't always answer your doorbell. Felix, this is illegal entry. 2 to 5 years. Possible suspended sentence for first offense, but count on it. I'm in Brooklyn. Now go out that door and come back another time. It's all right. I can explain. Don't be frightened.
Why should I be frightened?
You walk into your own house. This is your house. A perfectly strange man. There is an explanation.
Don't bother. You've always worshipped my father's books.
Not particularly.
You're writing this piece of literary criticism.
I haven't criticized anything in years.
You met my father in a bar once, and he said if you were ever in the neighborhood,
I'm a lawyer.
now I'm frightened. You have this client who claims my father attacked her, and what does his estate intend to do about the wife and 12 children?
I'm a contract lawyer. It sounds like you had quite a week.
Look, just what are you doing here, Mr.
Hackaday. Felix Hackaday. I have cards, a driver's license, an office with 3 windows. Your father's agent was supposed to talk to you. I work for MGM. Some of our people feel there might be a movie in your father's life.
What sort of movie?
Honest, adult, biographical,
Dirty.
but not for mature audiences. We're quite avant-garde. We produced the first movie where God wasn't played by an Englishman.
Look, if you have any inquiries, I suggest you take them to my father's attorneys or his agent. I don't want to be mixed up in this.
Is it me you don't like, or your father?
Is that question multiple choice?
Well, maybe if I came in, went out, and came back in through the front door. You see, we do need a release from you as part of his life.
You mean somebody who will be playing me in a movie?
That always gets him.
The answer is no.
You don't want a screen test? You don't think you've had some certain dramatic ability, untapped since the third grade when you played Abraham Lincoln. And if you can't play the part, why don't we get Audrey Hepburn?
Do I look like Audrey Hepburn?
I don't know what she looks like, except in movies. I just do contracts.
The answer is still no. Goodbye. You discourage easily.
That's why I'm still in the New York office. Well, I'll be back. There must be a way to reach you and your family. They don't hire me to give up.
Kate, are you home?
Your mark, get set.
Now, Kate, there was no reason for you to rush off. Oh, more visitors?
This is Mr. Hackaday. He wants to make a dirty movie with us.
Oh, not today, I'm afraid. They're dedicating the Archer Knott Memorial Room at the Brooklyn Public Library at 2. And later, we're planting a tree at the Botanical Gardens. Oh, Meryl, did you check? Do we have to bring our own tree?
It's provided, Mother. This biographical movie, Mr. Hackaday. Hazel mentioned it to us. I'm afraid it's out of the question.
Meryl is doing his own biography of his father.
Archer Knott and the use of his family.
In 3 volumes.
At least 3. Perhaps after it's published, a movie sale could be arranged.
Meryl, by then they'll probably have a hold of art form.
My sister doesn't understand about writers, Mr. Hackaday. She also doesn't understand that when a well-known university is presenting the family with a plaque of honor, all that is required of her is to stand still and keep her mouth shut.
I kept it shut for 45 minutes. But when they started confusing him with the author of the Sermon on the Mount,
Children, you're frightened.
Oh, I understand about families, Mrs. Kennard.
You have one of your own?
Oh, I'm not married.
Oh, not married. Kate, did you leave the water running upstairs?
no, Mummy dear. And if you're going to talk to me that way, I'm not going to check.
Kate, don't be clever.
Mr. Hackaday, this might be a good time to put your wallet on an inside pocket.
A release from the Mr. Kennard's family, I am prepared to offer $75,000.
Mr. Hackaday.
Relax, Liv. I'm not signing anything.
I'm sure they can find some way to write you out of Father's life. Lord knows he did.
Now, children, you must understand. This has been a terrible strain on Kate. A tragic event like this.
Oh, yes, tragic.
Tragic.
People have been so kind. Letters from all over the world. Flowers.
His universal appeal.
Universal.
Well, that's why we felt a movie of his life might be a permanent memorial.
But we hadn't looked at it that way. Of course, we knew he was famous, but it just seems that he almost had to die before people could feel, well, comfortable about him.
I realize I'm intruding on a moment of personal grief, not only for you, his family, but for the whole world.
Come on. He went down in a stolen plane with a 24-year-old cupcake. He did not ascend into heaven.
Maybe, in his own way, he was trying.
Meryl, did you leave the water running upstairs? I swear I hear the upstairs shower. Meryl takes showers now.
Shows us a bright side to everything.
I have the papers with me you have to sign.
You mustn't be in any hurry, Mr. Hackaday. We've all the time in the world. Unless you have someone waiting for you.
No,
At home?
just a couple of goldfish. Not a close relationship.
Then you can stay for lunch. And afterwards, join us at the tree planting. There's to be a cocktail party this evening his paperback publishers are giving. We're all going, even Kate.
No, I'm not. I have papers to correct. Now, if you'll excuse me.
My sister, Mr. Hackaday, never quite appreciated my father's brilliance. He was a man larger than life, beyond petty rules. Women sometimes find that hard to accept.
We do try, Meryl, in our limited way. I did realize Archer was a genius. It's a strange word to use about a husband, Mr. Hackaday. You see, I was married to 2 men. Well, one of them had colds and wanted cups of tea at the strangest times, and would light a cigarette and put an ashtray on his chest after. and the other was a great writer. I'd like to think I had something to do with that. I didn't. That was another man, living in another country, even if it was only a few inches away on the same bed. Tell me about my husband, Mr. Hackaday, in your movie, in Meryl's book, so they can become one man. Otherwise, I'll always feel unfaithful, loving them both.
Josie, what a wonderful thing to say.
No!
Father, I don't believe it.
Mr. Kennard, we are open heart. You're
I
back.
was sitting on the stairs wondering how to break it to you. This did seem the perfect moment.
That shower was running.
Kate, my dear, Meryl, Liv, haven't you grown up pretty? And my darling Josie.
No! No! Why did you have to come back to spoil everything?
I think Brooklyn's going to have one less tree tonight.
She didn't mean it, Father, Mr. Hackaday. We thought you were.
I know, I'm not. What's the matter with your mother?
My name is Heckaday. Felix Heckaday. I'm a lawyer for MGM.
Josie, come out here. I want to talk to you.
Excuse me. My company would like to make a movie of your life.
Meryl, Liv, take this young man somewhere and give him a drink. Josie, come out here.
I say, we want to make a movie of your life.
I'm not finished with it yet.
Come along, Mr. Hackaday. Do try to keep your mouth shut.
It's a great ending. But nobody will believe it.
All right, Josie, you can come out now. I know you're behind the door listening. I saw it move.
You surprised me.
You surprised me, too, especially after all that talk about love and understanding and ashtrays.
I tell lies. So, one thing you can enjoy at any age.
Didn't you mean any of it?
Archer. It's been very sad and important and romantic. That's not quite the same as wanting you back.
You're, older.
No, Archer. Just old. It's a permanent condition now.
You sound like we're one step from the coffin.
I'm not giving up on life. I'm just leaving the mess behind. I was an awkward girl. A totally disorganized wife and a bullied mother. I intend to enjoy my old age.
As my widow.
Sure, it's been such fun being the widow of a famous man. I've no idea. Parties and receptions, and everybody talks to you, and they speak very clearly. You don't have to be clever or interesting. It's up to them now. And you can make the most outrageous remarks. What strangers and tell them I think they're attractive.
Not on the street, I hope.
Don't be snippy, Archer. It's very middle-aged of you.
Not middle-aged. Much. I hate it so, growing older. Waking up in the morning and wondering about that little twinge in your back or your leg or your fingers.
I'm tired of worrying about my body. It's time it took care of itself.
You say that because you sleep alone. That's the trouble with philandering. You have to keep yourself in such good shape. Young girls these days are so energetic. They start out by being in awe of you as the grand man of letters, but after a while, all they want is the man, with no twinges. Am I shocking you?
No. Were you trying to?
Josie, why do you still see right through me after all this time? I'm sorry you're disappointed I'm alive.
How did you say that?
I didn't do it just to cause trouble. I wish I could explain to you what this last week has been like.
You'll find a way. You'll probably get a whole book out of it.
That edge in your voice, that's new, isn't it?
Not particularly. Maybe you never listened before.
Well, I'm listening now and looking at a lot of things I've never seen, not for years. This room, the sunlight, you.
You're making me very nervous, Archer.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to, but ever since the moment when that plane started to fall, it wasn't fast, you know, it was almost casual, a leaf off the tree. And I thought to myself, it's over now. It's going to be over forever.
Only it wasn't.
Now, there was this Mexican fishing boat headed somewhat slowly for New York. They rescued us.
Us?
I wasn't alone.
I know. I was rather glad when I thought it was final.
And now?
Go on.
Well, it was a rather strange fishing boat. They insisted we get away from the wreckage as quickly as possible. They wouldn't even let us use the radio.
6 days in the Caribbean. Even your deck turns out to be comfortable.
You've obviously never had 6 days of tuna fish.
I understand she's 24.
And beautiful and very intelligent. 6 days. I don't think I've been alone that long with anyone in years. You know, I was thinking last night. The stars were out. Daryl had gone down to bed. That's her name, by the way. Daryl Stoddard.
It was in the papers.
What? Oh, yes, I suppose it would be. Anyway, I couldn't get it out of my head last night. When does life begin? I was so hungry when I was young. First to make money, then to be famous, then to do my work better. And of course, there were all those pretty girls. It seemed such a shame not to reach out for. And now, suddenly, well, you know how old I am, but when does life begin? Some peace, some sharing, some feeling that there's one person in the world who completes you.
And now you've found her.
I think so, and I'd like to marry her. Oh, I don't kid myself, it'll last forever, but we could have a few complete, happy years.
Does she love you?
She respects me. She likes me. I think that with what little she knows of love, she loves me. And if it ends badly, I think she won't have had her whole life destroyed. She has so much time. It's my last chance, Josie. It's a land I'm sailing away from forever,
And now you'd like to swim back for a little while.
if I can.
Archie, Archie, look what I found.
Daryl, this is my wife.
You are lovely.
Well, there it is, Josie. Ask anything you want for a settlement, and it's yours. Throw me out of the house or laugh at me as a fool, but try to understand and forgive me.
I did that a long time ago.
And you will divorce him?
I'm so sorry. I can't. Why not be difficult, Archer? I can't divorce you. You see, we're not married.
What?
We never have been. Well, I really must get lunch ready. I'm afraid it's tuna. But I couldn't possibly know, could I?
Why didn't you even ask her anything?
Archer, can we go now?
Daryl, please. Look, what my wife said is not true. We did go down to Maryland, and we were married. It doesn't just run out like a magazine subscription.
Lunch isn't quite ready yet. I'm making a salad for the two of you. You will stay, won't you?
But Josie, would you sit down for just a minute? There are 1 or 2 questions I'd like to ask.
If it's about that other thing, I don't think we should discuss it now, Archer. Not in front of the children.
But Josie, you said we weren't married.
You told them? Well, I can understand you're wanting Daryl to know, but it's nobody else's business.
Well, this is idiotic. In April of, I don't remember the year, did we or did we not go down to Maryland, and there in the presence of your mother and that man she hired to drive the car, were we or were we not married?
We were not.
It never happened. I made the whole thing up. Maryland isn't one of the United States.
Maryland's all right. It's just that... Oh, Archer, this is so embarrassing.
How do you think we feel?
Do you remember how we got to Maryland?
Vividly. Your mother had browbeat the garage down on the price. We got the worst possible car. I had to change 3 flat tires that day. That oak behind the wheel wouldn't even help.
And where was I?
You were in the front seat. You were wearing a pink dress. Very nice, too.
That was on the way back. Going down, it was just the three of you. Mama sent me the day before to make arrangements. She didn't want you losing a day's pay.
No, I'd forgotten. Little town just across the state line. Bosworth or something, wasn't it?
Bosworth. All the way on the train, I kept thinking and thinking. I wanted so much to marry you, Archer. And we were forcing you into it. Or at least my mother was. Well, you know how she could be. It was all I could do.
Look, Josie, it's wonderful your total recall of everything, but what has this got to do with our marriage?
Well, I went on the train. I got to the hotel, and I knew I should walk around town. Well, on the way, I passed this little house. It had a sign out front, and it said, Justice of the Peace, Marriages. It was painted a very strange purple. Well, the house, not the sign.
Josie, it couldn't have been. God, I think it was.
There was a man out front mowing the lawn in his undershirt. Very friendly. I asked him about the justice, and he said he was out of town. The whole family was for the weekend. He was the justice's brother. He'd been in vaudeville as a juggler. He was staying with his brother between engagements.
But what has this to do with our marriage?
Well, I'm coming to that. Archer gets very impatient when other people are talking. Do you ever notice that?
Josie, I may not need a divorce. I may be on trial for murder.
Now, Archer. Well, I did register at the hotel, and I knew I should get a justice. But I didn't. I sat on the porch and I rocked a while. And then I went back to the juggler.
We were married by a juggler?
Well, he thought it would be a terrific joke. He understood about Mother. And I don't think he cared for his brother very much.
Doesn't sound as if he cared too much about marriage either.
Well, you're wrong. He said if a man suggested faking a marriage, he'd punch him right in the snoot. He kept saying it over and over again. But if it was the woman's idea, well, he couldn't see any harm in it. And next day, he did beautifully. He only winked once on our way out.
Didn't you have to have a license?
Well, he gave us one.
They had all the forms in the house.
But why? You loved him.
I told you, Kate. We trapped your father, and I thought someday he'll really fall in love. Well, it seemed then as if my mother was going to live forever. I knew if he tried to get away, she'd destroy him. I was so plain. I had no dowry. It was the only gift I could give him.
Josie, what a beautiful thing to do.
Then you do believe me.
Of course. Shouldn't I?
Well, just that it must seem a little strange after all those years.
Why didn't you ever tell me?
You never met anybody you wanted to marry. I made that the requirement. You had to ask for a divorce.
And now again. Archer, can we go now?
Daryl, please.
I don't believe it. You've never done anything improper your whole life, and you tell us you've been living with a man for over 30 years without even marrying him?
Well, it's not like he was home all the time.
Don't you realize what that makes us? We don't even have a name.
Oh, there's a name for us, Sarah.
And when we were born, didn't you think anything?
Well, it was too late then, Meryl. I couldn't very well ask your father to marry me again.
Why, he already started cheating on you?
Merrill, watch your language.
You're a lawyer. Isn't there such a thing as common law marriage?
After a certain number of years,
And don't the children have rights?
generally, but
Is it the point that we can get married right away? Come on, Archer, let's go.
I'm afraid that might be a little difficult. You see, Mr. Canard, you're publicly known as a married man. It was even in the New York Times. Survived by widow, 2 children. It's a lot harder to get married these days. You'd have to have some proof of divorce.
I'm single, you heard her.
Oh, you can't just say you're single. You have to be able to prove it.
But how? Could you prove you're single?
No, but the New York Times never claimed I was married.
I don't see what the problem is. You're free, Archer. I'll be happy to swear to it.
Well, that solves everything, doesn't it?
It's a delicate legal point. You probably know that here in America, a wife can't testify against her husband. She can't testify for him either.
But I'm not her husband.
Only you can't prove it. So if you marry this young lady, I'm afraid most of the world will consider it bigamy.
And what about us?
You be quiet.
I just discovered I'm illegitimate. That I have no rights, nothing, and I'm supposed to be quiet?
Try, I may adopt you.
I'm afraid you can't, Mr. Canard. It's against the law for single men.
Look, either I'm single or I'm married. Which is it?
Frankly, at the moment, I don't know. If Mrs. Canard can find a way to prove she was engaged in fraud, then you're single. You could probably sue her for damages.
But I don't want to sue her.
And I thought it would be such a nice surprise.
What's to prevent me from taking my marriage certificate down to Mexico? I find some judge. He doesn't have to know about the juggler. He gives me a divorce and then everything's settled. You wouldn't say anything, would you, Josie? I mean, after all, you meant the whole thing generously.
I'll say anything you want me to say, Archer. If you want your freedom, I'm sure none of us wants to stop you.
I want to stop him.
You have nothing to say about this.
I was going to be your official biographer. It's what I've been studying, working on. It's my whole career.
You're going to spend your whole life caretaking me?
Archer, Merrill, you're both getting far too excited about this. Now, why don't we just go in and have some lunch? I'm sure Felix, you don't mind if I call you Felix? You'll think of something.
The point is, we're his heirs.
Well, it's a fine thing to say to your father after he's come back from the dead. As soon as we hit Mexico, I'm changing my will.
You can't, it's in probate.
Well, take it out of probate.
I'm afraid that's not too easy to do.
Look, every time you're afraid, I'm in worse trouble. And Darrell, right after lunch, I want you to check the airline schedules for Mexico. We'll call your father from there, and the press. After all, if we're going to re-emerge, we might as well do it south of the border.
Actually, it might be a good thing for us to fly now. Shows we're not afraid.
Speak for yourself. All right, Josie, where's our marriage license?
Well, I'm afraid I don't exactly remember.
What are you talking about? Your mother nailed it over our bed.
That was ages ago, Archer. We've had the painters in since then.
It's not your safety deposit box either. We went through that Tuesday.
You didn't waste any time, did you? Surprised you haven't sold my clothes.
The auction was set for next Monday.
Hey, do you remember where I put it?
How could I, Mother, if you don't?
Oh, it's got to be someplace. In the attic, maybe. Could we put it with your father's things down in the cellar?
You put my things in the cellar.
There are 14 trunks down there. Newspaper clippings, interviews.
First drafts, critical essays, contracts.
No, collects.
We're going to donate them to the Brooklyn Public Library. They probably won't even get in the room now.
And I know they've dug the hole for the tree.
14 trunks. Well, I'm certainly not going to check them on an empty stomach. Let's eat. You know, the first thing we ought to do after lunch is go out and check your mother's grave and see if she's turned over in it.
Oh, there's no mayonnaise on this skillet. He's not supposed to have mayonnaise.
Quick, Kate. Liv, think of something. Hazel. She won't let him throw everything away in some floozy. Come on, Liv.
It's hard to think of Merrill as a love child.
You can go too, I promise not to tell.
Your mother did invite me to lunch.
Don't they pay you enough to eat out?
Well, I just thought your family might need a lawyer.
We do, one with answers.
Now, that's interesting. And you haven't had an analysis either.
What makes you come up with that?
Well, I've made this study. Single girls over 25 who've been analyzed always have better manners, at least towards single men.
My manners are fine. And what makes you think I'm over 25?
It was in the obituaries. It's all right. I'm over 30 myself.
And single.
That was a very noisy raising of eyebrows.
I've read those articles about what's the matter with the single American man.
There's nothing the matter with the single American man. He just doesn't want to go to bed with the 50 lady writers who do articles on what's the matter with the single American man.
Don't have to yell.
I'm not yelling! Lawyers don't yell.
You don't even look like a lawyer.
Of course I do. I look exactly like one. Sensible tie, conservative jacket, practical glasses. I don't even need glasses. Contact lenses.
Frankly, you look more like a shoe salesman. Kind of panics when he loses a customer.
Isn't that what's happening right now?
You're not still after those movie rights, are you? You are!
It's my job.
That's why you're getting all this conversation and charm.
Did you think I was charming?
And you picked me as the easiest one to start with.
No, you just seemed, well, I wanted to talk to you. Are you always this suspicious? I suppose if I said you had nice legs, you'd think I had a foot fetish.
Do you?
If I had, I hope I'd had enough sense to be a shoe salesman. Listen, can't we finish this over lunch?
If you don't mind, I'm not very hungry.
Well, I'm not surprised. You've just bitten off the hand that's trying to feed you.
Oh, the hand that feeds me is me.
But you must know how old I am. You read my autobiographies.
Doesn't have to keep bringing it up all the time.
Look, it's just your imagination. Why are you still here?
I'm not sure I know anymore.
Don't tell my wife to feed you.
You see? You're doing it again. Why is she now suddenly your wife?
She isn't suddenly my wife. She isn't suddenly anything. She's Josie. Now, Daryl, why are you so upset?
I don't know. Yes, I do. I don't trust generous women. It's not in our natures. Don't you see what's happening? She's even got us fighting.
You may be fighting, but I'm not. Look, darling, if we can just hold on for a couple more hours, we'll be safe. Now, kiss me.
No, I can't. Not in this house.
Well, certainly you can. Just look on it as mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. There, you see? Nothing's changed. You and I are being watched.
Excuse me, didn't anyone want dessert? It's your favorite Archer, coconut cake.
No, he was just going to look in your mirror today. Weren't you, darling?
Yes, of course. Maybe later, Josie, just before we go. Listen, where is that metal box, the one with the first draft of Children of Lazarus?
In the cellar, I suppose.
In the cellar. Isn't anybody else coming? No.
Such a shame, he always liked coconut.
He's not supposed to have it. I did warn you about the mayonnaise.
He always liked that, too. Are you sure he's not supposed to have it?
Quite sure. They put him on a special diet after his medical checkup last year in Switzerland. Oh, I'm sorry. You wouldn't know about that, would you?
We did get a postcard with an L. There wasn't anything on it about mayonnaise.
You hate me very much, don't you?
Because I think he should be allowed to have coconut cake. He spent so many years being hungry.
Can't we talk honestly?
I thought we were.
Every time anybody tries to get into facts with you, you slide away from them. But your generation was taught to tell the truth.
There was an alternative. You could keep your mouth shut.
Oh, and I suppose you call that being tactful, or diplomatic, or ladylike? I call it hypocrisy.
Yes, I imagine you would.
Couldn't you try, just for once? Now you don't like me, do you?
I hardly know you.
Would it be easier if I turned my back? Now take a deep breath and try.
No, of course I don't like you, my dear.
The my dear was unnecessary.
No, it wasn't. People aren't traffic lights, stop and go. I may not like you, but I do feel a little sorry for you. And protective.
Protective of me?
You're so very young.
As you kept pointing out in there, I'm not all that young.
No, you're 24, and you think you're in love with a man who's, well, considerably older.
It's worked in other cases.
Yes, with satisfied men and sensible women. I don't think Archer will ever be that satisfied.
And I'm not sensible enough?
Well, you're terrifyingly sensible. You seem to have about as much abandon as a trained nurse.
Maybe he's just a little tired of abandoning women by now, of all ages.
Please, I didn't mean that personally. It's just that I don't think either one of you would be happy together. You've had 6 wonderful days. A seminar. With a brilliant, talented man. I think that's quite a lot.
Not quite enough. Not for me. I'm going to marry him, and there's nothing you can do to stop me.
I wouldn't dream of trying.
Why do you always agree? Why do I always feel like I've just lost something?
Not your temper, I hope. I'm not really worth it.
You don't have some strange idea of winning Archer back, do you?
None whatever. But I do think it's charming. A girl your age could be so sentimental.
I'll sign that certificate.
Go right ahead. Why don't you start in the attic? That could use a good cleaning, too.
No. Bosworth, Maryland, wasn't it? Suppose I call the courthouse. They'll have a record there. Then it won't matter what your copy is.
It won't be there. I told you. It wasn't a legal ceremony. How could it even be registered?
You've told us a lot of things, and I don't believe any of them. There was a legal wedding and a legal certificate, and it will be in a legal file.
It's Saturday. The courthouse will be closed.
Not to lawyers. I don't care how small that town is, there'll be a lawyer. For a substantial fee. And I can offer a substantial fee. I'm quite wealthy, you know.
And clever. Much cleverer than I thought.
No, just sensible. The kind of wife Archer should have. What are you going to do?
Change my clothes. There's not much point in my wearing mourning now, is there?
You are so smug, so sure you're going to bring me being old and finished and stuck in a cottage with roses around the door? Well, I'll show you. You don't exist anymore. You and your whole world, they don't exist anymore.
Who's that?
Daryl,
What?
don't worry, she'll be back.
Just imagine all those years living in sin and I didn't even know it.
What a shame I couldn't tell you about it. Then maybe we both could have enjoyed it. How's the search coming?
They're on the 4th front. I like that dress.
Thank you. The cake's still in the kitchen. I promise not to tell.
Better not. Where is she anyway?
Daryl, out somewhere. Are you really on that strict diet?
It's the coconut. Gets in my teeth. And this little bridge over here on the left.
That's new, isn't it?
Last year. Bloody nuisance. You still have all yours?
Not even a filling.
Disgusting. And I suppose you could eat taffy apples and marshmallow and corn on the cob.
Why not? At my age, I really can't see any reason why I should worry about my figure. I never liked it anyway.
I did.
That gawky girl.
She had her charms. You were always very gentle, Josie, and understanding.
Another person, Archer. You know, I read somewhere we change every cell in our body every 7 years. Funny to think there have been so many of the two of us. Well, if you don't need anything.
Now listen, don't run off. We've got a lot to talk about.
not very much.
The children, they don't seem to like me very much. How they turn out so stuffy?
They think they're very free. Merrill was devoted to you. I honestly think he'd like this whole street roped off in memory. Then, of course, to find out he doesn't even belong to you.
Well, of course he does, whether we're married or not.
Archie,
Unless you're not trying to tell me someone else fathered them.
how could you even think such a thing? Besides, in those days, you came home every night.
Late.
You're forgetting. I was in love with you. They're your children, legitimate or otherwise.
It's the otherwise I'm worried about.
Just because once in my frightened life, I tried to do something generous.
But when, Josie? On our wedding day or now?
I doubt that Daryl would consider me very generous today. She's much prettier than the others. Whatever happened to that Danish countess? She's the one I worried most about.
Last I heard, she was on the Riviera being kept.
Oh, probably a good idea. From what?
From me, I think.
And since then?
No, nothing very serious. There was a widow that summer I rented a place in Sicily. Actually, she was only a few years younger than you.
So, of course, that couldn't work.
Your tastes change as you get older.
I don't think you have to worry much about that, Archer. Somehow you'll always be a small boy kicking leaves.
Well, to you, maybe. Why can't everybody else see that I'm only 20?
20. Doesn't that make you a little young for Daryl?
Don't laugh at me, Josie. I may be a fool, but at least I'm not afraid.
Was that meant for me? Don't, Archie. Don't turn this into an attack.
Am I getting fingerprints all over your ivory tower? Tell me, Josie, what do you like? Now, I mean.
You looked at me this morning. I'm the way I look.
Peaceful, serene, quiet with life, or running from it?
Go away, Archer. Go and take your pretty girl. You won't have to marry her. She'll love you anyway. You always had plenty of charm for that.
Josie, are you afraid of me, too?
You're still in life. Oh, I'm sure it's very healthy and modern and growing, but I'm out of it. And I want to stay out.
Josie, I'm not trying to hurt you.
But you are. You asked me what I'm like. The past 5 years, I haven't lost my temper once. Not till today.
Josie.
Sorry, it was getting chilly in the garden.
Listen, don't go. I was just heading back to the cellar.
Boy, I do wish they would learn to spell before they get to high school.
You teach, don't you? English?
I teach them not to rape each other. At least not in front of me. Whatever else they learn is purely incidental. You don't have to keep me company.
I'm not. I'm just sitting down. Listen, what are children in high school reading these days?
You. Want to know what they think? The day of your memorial service, my substitute had them write a critical essay. Guess who gets to correct them?
I found Mr. Goodot's novel wordy, pretentious, and dull, full of old-fashioned angst and cliché attempts at depression realism. My word, the times couldn't be tougher. You giving a B to this Mr. Woodstone?
He's the editor of the school paper. He doesn't think the novel has a future.
Not much of a past either, apparently. Even has a few sharp words to say about the binding. Now, I like this book. This is a good book. People in this book fight like my mother and father. Doesn't say much for his home life. I found Mr. Connaught's novel deeply revealing of the soul of a sensitive, talented, genuinely profound artist. To think that he could have overcome the wretchedness of his early life to go on to such great success. What a remarkable human being he must have been. Who's this? Elsie Campbell, I like her.
She's a cheerleader. And she cheats. She knows I'm your daughter, and she's trying to get a better grade.
All the same, I think this deserves better than a D. Elsie, I think you should have an A. What does she look like?
Daryl.
You don't like Daryl very much, do you? I suppose it was too much to expect everyone to be friendly.
It's none of my business.
Kate, talk to me. Don't be grand and dignified. Think of all the thousands of things you'd like to throw in my face. You can't do that if you're going to be icy.
Since I haven't even seen you in over 5 years, I really didn't think my opinion mattered.
I'm a visualist. Is there such a word? If I don't see someone, I don't think about them. I'm sorry, but it's the truth.
You mean you didn't think of any of us?
Well, your mother, of course. Well, she's really gone and done it this time, hasn't she? Imagine her having all that spirit. I don't suppose you remember your grandmother.
Just a little.
Yeah, terrifying woman. She always treated me as if I were carrying typhoid in both my pockets. Promise me you won't turn out like her.
You don't think I'm likely to.
Well, you have all those chips on your shoulder. What young man could ever get close enough to brush them off?
I know plenty of young men.
Who? I was checking your appointment book when I was upstairs changing. Had a date this month.
Why, of all the... You are so incredible, I don't know what to say.
The first thing that pops in your mind, quick.
Don't you draw the line at anything.
Boredom. Lying, unless it's to be tactful. Cruelty.
It wasn't exactly kind to desert us.
Didn't desert you? Good heavens, Kate. You and Merrill had school and summer camps? What was I supposed to do? Hang about repairing your roller skates and showing you the first tender shoots of spring? Much better young people do that on their own.
And Mother? Did you ever really love her?
Very much. I'm not just saying that to be tactful, if that's what you think.
But were you ever really in love with her, like you are with Daryl?
Yes. I'd been here about a month. And then one day something happened at the school where I was teaching. It was just a prank, but it hurt. You know what she did? She stayed up all night, knitting me a tie, dark red. I suppose that sounds silly to you.
No.
She didn't even have the courage to give it to me. She just wrapped it up and left it outside my door. I remember thinking that morning that somebody cares about me. I came down those stairs. She was standing right here by the terrace, blushing. Young girls don't seem to do that much anymore. Pretty and shy and so young. No one was ever as young as your mother.
And then you left her, when she wasn't so young anymore.
That's not the way it happened at all. I've often thought about why I wandered away. It's not so uncommon, you know. Marriage is breaking up. I don't know what the statistics are, but there's something incredible. And everyone always asks, why?
Does anyone ever know?
I think so. The woman you marry first. You usually marry young. She's the only one besides yourself who thinks you can do all the marvelous things you want to do. But then when the struggle is over, she's also the reminder of when you were poor and ugly and a failure.
There's only one tie to your name.
She told you about that. Wish I could say I kept that tie. I didn't. My first movie sale, I burned it. I enjoyed burning it very much.
And Daryl has things to remind you of someday?
Now, they'll be different with Daryl. She'll only remember me as I am now, somewhat battered success. You know, I think I will have a piece of that cake. Who knows when I'll have another chance. You know, Kate, it's not all selfishness, the wandering husband. Look, for my sake, please, give them all A's.
Hello, Hazel.
So, he's back from the grave, is he? I suppose we should have known that no simple man would last her like the law of gravity and stuff. What's this all about?
Didn't Merrill tell you?
About 1 word in 10 came through and recognized I thought at first it was a scrambled call from the State Department, except I don't know anybody in the State Department, scrambled or not.
Father survived the plane crash, and the girl with him.
That came through.
He's here to ask Mother for a divorce to marry the girl.
So, Josie's handled her 30 years as his wife. That's longer than 4 out of 5 marriages put together.
She says they aren't married. They never were.
The mirror wasn't scrambled either. Why didn't this all come out before?
Apparently, he's never asked her before. The condition was he had to ask her for a divorce.
He never asked? But he must have. All those affairs. Lorraine, what's her name? That was off and on for decades. And the one with the bust who kept taking him off to shoot lions?
They may have wanted to get married. He didn't.
Why, that's Tinker.
Hazel, you finally got here.
So you never asked for a divorce.
Listen, we got a lot of things to get straightened out. What?
You rat, you never asked for a divorce. All that winter you lied to me.
Hazel! Not you too!
Why not? I didn't always have good sense. That last one I seen, my eyes were red for a week. Try explaining hay fever in February.
You're part of the family.
Kate, it doesn't mean anything. Explain it to her, Hazel.
Suppose you explain it to me first.
Excuse me. Hello, Mrs. Dunn.
Felix,
Merrill feels we don't have to keep all the checks, and he said to tell you we could use some help.
I wouldn't lift a finger to help any man on earth.
Kate, come back here.
I'm not going to take that personally. Oh.
Now see what you started?
now it's my fault?
They go back 30 years. The checks I mean.
Look, just throw them out. What's Merrill doing down there anyway?
If he finds that license before you do, I think he plans to blackmail you.
What kind of son would do that?
Yours.
I'll tell him to burn. It's just that I thought, if you aren't married, you've been filing false income tax all these years.
Young man, don't burn anything. Nothing, you hear? My God, income tax.
30 years of false returns.
But they can't do anything to me, can they, Hazel? I mean, I didn't know.
The Internal Revenue is funny about ignorance. They don't believe it.
How far can they go back? Financially, I mean.
7 years. When I think of that winter, what I went through,
Hazel, will you stop talking like a woman? This is money.
I was just a kid. My first job, my first love affair,
What could they stick me for? The government, I mean, after 7 years.
quite a lot. Crying my eyes out.
Well, do I have quite a lot?
No, and you didn't even ask for a divorce.
Hazel, I've had a wonderful life, 2 husbands, both normal. Now, don't try to pretend that what happened between us meant anything. Now, will you please explain to me why at this point in my career I end up broke?
Not broke, just not rich enough to pay 7 years back income tax.
Well, who is?
Not all at once, and if you don't pay all at once, the interest multiplies.
What I ought to do is marry Darrell right now. You know, she has an oil well in her own name. Once in New York and once in Mexico, I could thumb my nose at the income tax. I only come to New York anyway to get my teeth fixed. Anyway, a couple more years, I can mail them in.
Let's go away with it for a while.
He's a very old-fashioned father. He doesn't even believe in gun laws. Now, if you were an orphan.
I was an orphan. A lot of good it did me.
Hazel, did you leave the door open?
Don't change the subject. You're right. I left the front door open.
Darrell, where have you been? I want you to meet my agent.
You're right, young lady. Pulled out for marriage. Why, 20 years ago I didn't have your equipment. Well, I had it, but I think I got the wrong sizes.
Darrell, this is Hazel Dunn, my agent. Darrell, say something.
It burned down. The darn courthouse burned down. In 1957. Every marriage license in the place went.
You called Marilyn? But she said it was a fake. There wouldn't be anything on file anyway.
Do you really believe that? Do you really believe Miss Goody Two-Shoes didn't marry you legally?
Josie doesn't lie.
Oh, yes, she does. Around you were too.
Actually, you're right. This morning she was practically bragging about it.
There's got to be a marriage license someplace. And I bet it's not in any of those 14 trunks either.
I take it back, Archer. You'll get a book out of this. Either that or blood.
Archie, don't you understand? We've got to be married before Danny finds out on the line.
I could appeal to his chivalry. I am older than he is.
He doesn't have any. Only he always says. You make the bet. You've got to lie it. I don't pretend to lie or wrong.
Neither do I, but what do we do?
Pin Josie down. Make her sign her release. That lawyer, he can tell us what we need.
What if she refuses? What if it really is a trick?
At least we know the truth.
Oh, you had the truth. From the beginning, that's more than I can say for me. Hazel, how could you?
And I told you.
You should be so ashamed, both of you.
Josie, you can't be jealous. It was years ago. I've probably been unfaithful 400 times since then.
Only 400?
I wasn't trying for the record.
400 doesn't bother me. Once does. She was the first, wasn't she?
I do have a name, you know.
The first? The very first?
Probably.
She was holier than I was.
Now, just a minute.
You were. Oh, that winter, I thought somebody beautiful, somebody glamorous. But it was just Hazel.
I didn't know anybody glamorous in those days.
Thanks.
We even asked her to be Kate's godmother. No, we didn't. You asked her. You even forced that on me.
You like Hazel. Don't take this personally. She really does.
Personally, if you'll recall, that was my consolation prize when she wouldn't give you a divorce. I'll trust Kate to you. She'll be the daughter we never had. Don't you write lousy women's fiction?
Look, I don't know what you're both so angry about. It's Daryl I want to marry.
I can understand that. Any man would rather have Daryl than me. But Hazel?
I did have nice hands and naturally curly hair. I forget what color.
Excuse me, it was Bosworth, Maryland, where you were married.
Young man, stay out of this.
It's just that I found this clipping in one of the trunks. Did you know that courthouse burned down in 1957?
You've known all along.
Don't change the subject. Now I want you out of this house. You and all your women.
This happens to be my house.
As a matter of fact, it isn't. When you took over the mortgage, we put it in her name. Wait till the Internal Revenue tries to figure that out.
Look, young man, what do I need for divorce besides my marriage certificate?
I suppose an agreement signed by both of you.
I'm not signing anything without my lawyer. And I'm hiring you for my lawyer.
You can't. I already hired him.
You stop that! Ordering people like there's something from room service.
Actually, I'm under contract to MGM.
And I'm going to sue you for every penny I can.
You already have all my pennies. Besides, I'm suing you for desertion.
Me?
There goes the movie.
You stay right here.
Desertion?
All those income tax returns. Half my travel expenses I wrote off this business. God, to think of all the magazine articles I had to write to prove it. All right, that was my occupation, but where were you?
Raising your children.
There are no schools on the Riviera, no playgrounds in Rome.
You never asked me.
Well, nobody kept you from coming. Look, Josie, can't we talk about this sensibly? All right, look, I'm a terrible father, an absentee husband, a philanderer, a
Let's
liar.
not forget your last book didn't sell very well.
But once you had a kind and generous impulse. Don't go back on it now.
Do you really believe everything I tell you?
You see, she was lying.
I don't know what I believe anymore. All I know is I want this marriage to end. Now, when you sign a paper saying we're married and you're willing to give me a divorce,
Don't you do it, Mother!
my God, does everyone in this family listen at keyholes?
I have a right to protect my interests.
Your interests, from the day you were born, you were fed, dressed, educated, married, and unemployed. But what do you want?
It certainly isn't a stepmother. You trick her into signing anything and I'll file suit on behalf of her children. She was coerced. Undue pressure was brought. If we have to, we'll say she's senile.
Senile!
Do that to your own mother? My God, no wonder I've been home all these years.
Well, you see, Archer, my hands are tied. I'm either stuck with you or in a loony bin. So
think I'll just stay neutral. Oh, Miss Merrill, would you check, please? It's getting late. How many will there be for dinner?
Josie, you come back here. So she wants to fight dirty, does she?
Now I'm sure if we all stay...
Look, she's forgotten one thing. It takes 3 people to get married: the bride, the groom, and the justice of the peace. Somebody in that town will remember they married us.
Archer, that was a century ago. Everybody's dead.
All it takes is one person to remember and sign an affidavit. Then she'll have to give in.
She said the brother was a junkie. The house was purple. There can't be too many of that.
Stop helping him.
There aren't any planes that go to this town, or even any trains or buses. So how do we get there?
We don't. I'm not taking you anywhere until we can do it legally. Hazel, take her to a hotel. Young man, you drive.
Yes, but I'm under contract.
Look, you want to do a story of my life? You've got it at discount rates. All I want is chauffeur service and a signed statement as to what we find. And then let this family of assassins try to sweet-talk their way out of that.
I suppose it's my fault.
Hi,
Are they here yet?
Archer? No, I thought you were them.
Where did they come from?
Merrill put them up this morning. I thought he was going to knock down the walls getting nails in. He didn't even do the Times crossword. And we're in it. Well, Archer is. 27 down. Pies winning, mobbing off. 9 letters. It's either Merrill's father or Pearl Buck. Where have you been?
I went to church. I just thought I should. They were having a memorial service for Archer.
But he's dead. He's just in Maryland.
Oh, I couldn't very well tell them that, could I?
You should have heard the eulogy. It was lovely. Don't you look nice?
Do I? Really?
Is it some sort of occasion?
It's Merrill. We're going out. If he doesn't change his mind again. Honestly, I don't understand him. He told me to put on a skirt and lipstick. Lipstick with color. Do you know what he's doing right now? He's upstairs trying to find a clean shirt. A white one.
Bottom drawer on the left. Well, at least they were white when I bought them. That was some time ago. But why?
Don't ask me. He's just rebelling against everything we've ever stood for.
Oh, men get that way sometimes, after a couple of years of marriage.
He's talking about getting a place of our own, and children, and maybe even a job. What am I going to do?
Well, I'm hardly an expert on men. Still, I have found there's one way to fight them. Give them what they ask for. They won't like it, but it just might make them stop and think next time.
Here I've spent all this time learning to be free. He doesn't even care. It's them. They're back. Oh, hello, Hazel. Did you forget your keys?
No.
Look, Hazel's here. What's wrong?
Don't ask. Where is everybody?
How should I know? I don't even know where I am at the moment.
Hazel, I thought I heard your voice.
Merrill?
Luke and I would like to talk to you.
Just a minute. Just a minute. Let me look at you.
Luke and I have been discussing various possibilities.
Merrill has decided he wants to make money.
Isn't it lovely to hear young people talking sense again? You're going to write an expose of your father?
I have no father.
He tore up his manuscript this morning.
Oh? Well, in the meantime, if you'll pardon my language, what about a job? I've been saying for years I need an assistant at the agency.
Work with writers? Never.
Merrill's decided that all writing's a pride.
And all writers.
You'll make a perfect agent. Just think, spending the rest of your life telling authors their books are terrible.
I'll be in tomorrow. Come I warn you, I'll expect bonuses, an expense account, big commissions. If I've nothing left to but believe in business, I might as well be a success at it. Come on, Liv.
I do hope he'll let me keep the agency in my own name.
I never thought marriage would turn out like this.
Liv!
Whither thou goest.
I thought you'd be gone. You were so quiet.
Oh, come on, Josie, you can't go sweeping out of rooms for the rest of your life.
I won't have to, once I get the keys changed.
You're not so sore at me, you can't be.
Why not?
Because we're too old to say I'll never speak to you again as long as I live. We've invested too much time in each other. All those Christmas cards and birthday presents and Thanksgiving dinners.
It hurt, Hazel. It really did.
Listen, Josie, I got a few scars from that myself. If it'll make you feel any better, I did make all the advances.
Well, he was there to be advanced on. That must mean I was doing something wrong.
Listen, Josie, let's not give men the benefit of the doubt. They're tricky enough as it is. Which reminds me, where is he?
There was a phone call at 3 o'clock this morning for Kate from that nice lawyer. You really made all the advances?
Most of them. All that winter, I kept thinking the scarlet letter A was going to appear on my forehead. I darn near cut my hair in bangs. What time did Felix say they'd be back?
He didn't. She hung up on him. Did he ever say anything to you? Archer, I mean. About why he wanted to be unfaithful?
Oh, I just think he liked the idea of being rich and successful, married and having an affair. It was the one thing he couldn't buy at Tiffany's. Why did Kate hang up?
She'd been asleep. Although I don't know how she could be with everything that happened.
We've got to do something about that girl. Felix is a sober, hard-working, heterosexual bachelor, older than she is, and tall enough so she can wear high heels for the rest of her life. They don't give those away on street corners.
You really think he might be right for her?
The minute I met him, you know, negotiations on this movie thing, I thought, well, that solves what to get Kate for her birthday.
Oh, that's hardly a romantic basis for a courtship.
Exactly. Kate's the only one who hasn't signed the release, and if she keeps holding out, he'll have to keep seeing her.
They should be home soon.
I still say we have to do something about Kate. You know, she'd have trouble meeting eligible men if we hurled her into the YMCA steam room. Now, they're bound to be back sometime today.
Hazel, your answering service just called me.
Do you think they'd at least relax on Sundays? What's the problem?
Kate, what on earth are you wearing?
Meryl gave them to me. The problems seem to be coming in groups. First, Daryl's father finds out that she's alive and is threatening to charge us with kidnapping, theft, and keeping a disorderly house. He is arriving at any moment by private plane, of which he apparently owns as many as Pan Am. That movie studio called, and they want to know if the rumor around town about Archer Knott being alive is true. And if so, they're prepared to offer twice the amount for his life story, only where's their lawyer? The Brooklyn Public Library called and is insulted that we didn't show up last night. And there's a man from the botanical garden on the phone who wants to know what we intend to do with the tree.
And writers don't think we earn our 10%. Well, back to the office. If I don't emerge in 3 days, send what's ever left to Elizabeth Arden.
Kate, you look so different.
You mean slacks? You know, Mother, after all these years being so proper, so conventional, always doing what was expected of me, I finally realized I don't have to. Why should I? What have I got to live up to? All these years, a very nice, unattached gentleman was living in sin with my mother. It's someday, Kate. He bought the braces for my teeth, the Girl Scout uniforms, subscription to photo play, and he didn't even have to.
Kate, I don't like you like this.
Don't worry, Mother, I'm not planning anything so terrible. But I'm just not going to sit home every night and reread Jane Austen. I don't know, maybe I'll cut my hair or go to a movie, even if I can't get anybody to take me. Or maybe I can get somebody to take me. You'll have to show me how.
Is this some kind of game, Kate?
No. But I finally realized last night there is a side to Father's story, too. You are tricky.
I always said you never really saw me. I didn't know you wouldn't like me when you did.
Front door's open, is he here?
They called from Maryland last night.
I don't mean Archer, I mean Daddy.
Daddy's circling the area.
He was so mad when I called him last night. He already put the down payment on their memorial statue. I don't think they're going to give it back. You've got to help me. There were newspaper reporters in the hotel lobby. Apparently they heard rumors. Assistant to a friend.
It'll die down in time.
But I don't have time. You do. You have heaps of it. Everything's all settled for you. I'm not really 24. I lied. 26. And if this takes a year to die down, I'll be 27. If I'm not married to Archer, what nice boy would look at a 27-year-old girl with my reputation?
Oh dear, you're not going to turn wistful on me, are you? I wasn't prepared for that.
I can make Archer such a good wife. I can type manuscripts, and I do know about diets. And it can't be good for him to be out chasing girls all the time. And I bet if we got him settled, he'd win the Nobel Prize. United States is due.
He didn't get it married to me. That lasted 30 years.
I said settled, and I could arrange that. Daddy would help. Daddy can be very firm. Besides, you do want him to have all his honors in his senior citizen years.
When did I become the bad influence in Archer's life?
You know, sooner or later you're going to have to give him up, or he'll feel you trapped him. Twice.
Wistful didn't last very long, did it? All right, Daryl.
Mother?
We might as well get this settled now before he gets back. And if it's the newspapers,
You're not going to let her get away with this, are you?
there's nothing I can do, and nothing I'm sure I want to do. Now, if you're really going to take Archer over, there are a few things you should know. We might start with his medicine chest. You do know how to make an old-fashioned mustard plaster, don't you?
Hello, where's my father?
Hello, isn't he here?
No.
But they have to be here. I put them in the taxi an hour ago.
They? You mean you brought this justice of the peace back with you?
Not exactly. I mean, he's not exactly a justice of the peace. I mean, it's rather complicated. They should have been here by this time.
You should know better than to leave my father alone. He could be on his way to Tangiers by now.
I had to go to my apartment. I wanted to get cleaned up. Maryland's a very dirty state.
Well, if you'll excuse me.
Miss Canuck, you're beautiful.
Put your glasses back on.
They are on. I mean, I'm wearing my contact lenses. And my good suit. This is my most expensive tie. And I've used a lime cologne that's supposed to be irresistible. Isn't it?
Maybe to another line. Look, what's this all about anyway?
I think it's called courting. It isn't called courting? Oh. In the last 24 hours, I've driven all the way to Maryland and back. I've had no sleep, and I've cleaned out most of the cellar. It has to be called something.
But you only just met me yesterday.
Is there a time limit? You're single. You're bright. You're attractive.
My nose has a bump on it.
Well, I didn't notice. You're right. You don't.
I do have nice ears. Well, people have told me that anyway. Well, what people? A Japanese exchange student. Or doesn't that count?
Well, it counts, but I'm not an ear man myself.
Who am I kidding? This has to be a gag. All right. What's the funny part?
Me, I guess.
Were you trying to ask me for a date?
I was working up to it. Once I found out where I stood, rejection makes me nervous.
It's Sunday. I have to work tomorrow.
We all do. Still, people eat, even on Sundays. And maybe a movie?
A movie? You're not still after my signature on that release, are you?
It's part of it.
Why, of all the old dirty... And I was really beginning to think you liked me.
I do like you. I also need your signature on that release. What's wrong with having two reasons for liking a girl?
It doesn't work that
Well,
way.
it doesn't make sense.
No wonder you're still single. I'm surprised you can even get Goldfish to live with you.
You remember.
Go away. Just go away.
I can't. I'd better wait till your father gets here. And besides, how can I go thinking I've done something wrong when I don't know what that something wrong is? I could keep making the same mistakes forever.
Your mother's split. Some of those separating medicine bottles that go back before I was born. Right now, she can't remember which one of you had the flu in 1962.
Don't expect any sympathy down here. Turn the other chick in this house and you get it smacked right in the chops.
Look, would you mind just disappearing?
Yes. No. What I'd really like to do is go back to 15 and start all over again.
That should give you about 3 more years to grow up to it.
Don't pick on her. At least she's honest.
I only meant.
You be quiet. It's not easy defending you.
Since when did you turn out on my side?
I don't know if I am. I don't know of anything anymore. Yesterday, everything was so easy. My father was a dead lecher. My mother told the truth, and I was the Judson spinster. Oh, my God. I said it. I actually said it.
It's just a word. It doesn't mean anything.
I opened my mouth, and my own voice said it. Oh, my God.
Don't follow her now. It wouldn't do any good.
Since when did you become an expert on advice to the lovelorn?
Are you in love?
Oh, don't be idiotic. I've only known her 30 hours. So far, all we've done is fight.
Maybe that helps to get things out of the way. Would you do me a favor?
Probably not.
Would you come over here and kiss me? Nothing personal, just an experiment.
You're crazy. You know that? You're a crazy lady.
You'll need my signature on that release, too, won't you? For the ending.
Things they don't teach you in law school. Well, any particular place? Cheek, forehead, dead center?
Felix, will you stop fooling
Oh,
around?
Mr. Clark, it didn't mean anything
Get
really.
out of the cab.
No wonder that plane crashed. I bet you were on the Titanic.
What did you say to Kate? She's crying. Her back.
Oh, no, gentlemen, I'll be all right. Oh, what did they I'll bet it contains everything one could possibly need. Where's the bar?
In a minute, Mr. Bedlow. First, I'd like you to meet my wife.
How do you do, Major?
Not yet, Mr. Bedlow. This is my wife. Josie, you remember Mr. Bedlow, don't you? He's the one who married us.
I never saw him before in my life.
Really? I traveled quite a bit. Since my retirement, I've been making this extensive study on the drinking habits in North America. My experience tells me this is the sort of household where the bar would be concealed in a piece of furniture. Mr. Bedlow, please. You see, he's a very dedicated scholar. He told us about it on the way up. I visited almost every state. Yes, Mr. Bedlow, you told us.
Could be a glass of cold water?
On the side, one ice cube. I find you have to be careful of the water when you travel. Oh, a garden! Beautiful. You know, it's been a long time since I tasted fresh air.
Archer, what kind of trick are you playing?
It's not a trick, honest.
See? You were supposed to be my lawyer.
I am. Mr. Canard, try to explain.
Look, go look at the Bedlow. I think he's forgotten how to breathe. We found him at 7 o'clock this morning in this after-hours joint. It was the last purple house in town. The walls of this house were covered with pictures of famous people Mr. Bedlow has married. There was one of me on the cover of Time.
He probably put it up deliberately. He probably heard you were in town and was looking for a handout.
What's the matter, Josie? Afraid?
I'll listen to anything he has to say when he's sober.
We tried that. He called asleep. I think we're better off leaving him the way he is. Darrell, there's a bottle in the study.
Where's the study?
Oh, Beth, you hired him.
But of course, my dear, that's what justices of the peace are for. Now, if you will just join hands. Empowered as I am to perform ceremonies here in the state of Maryland.
We're not in Maryland.
And I'm afraid we're not getting married.
You mustn't be shy. That's for the bride.
But you've already married us, don't you remember, Mr. Bedlow?
Oh, I never married anyone as old as you. Not that I wouldn't like to. I enjoy seeing people together, but some people, they just won't try. It's sad, to see kids of 50 and 60 with nothing to look forward to. Might I help you with that, my dear?
Mr. Bedlow, early this morning you were telling us about famous marriages you've performed.
Oh, I do hope I wasn't boring.
Mr. Bedlow, please, don't you remember what you said was the most important moment of your life?
I'm 87 years young. That's what I always say. Your most important moment, please. Try to remember. Let's see. January 5th, 1939. Mrs. Bedlow died. Not a pleasant woman, I regret to say. No, this morning. You told us. Fell over dead right in the middle of a sentence. I guess it had to happen. She was always in the middle of a sentence.
Don't you remember what you said?
Well, I'm 87 years young. Your most important moment, please try to remember. March 6th, 1931. The act played the palace. The act. Think about the act. Was it a juggling act? Two brothers. One was a juggler.
And the other was a justice of the peace.
Actually, we were both jugglers.
That's not what you said this morning.
And that was just about the time we were both justices of the peace.
Wait a minute, what did you say?
We were both.
Oh.
Oh!
But when did you start marrying people?
Delicious. When did I start marrying people? Well, I got my license in 1932. No, 1942. Vaudeville was dead, and Harvey settled down in Maryland in this purple house. Wait a minute. This morning you told us your name was Harvey. I did? Well, I guess then I settled down in Maryland. And Howard came along later. Hurry and Howard, tricks with 10 pins. That's how they built us.
Mr. Bedlow,
Madam.
did you tell these gentlemen that you performed Archer Connaught's wedding ceremony?
Really? The famous writer? Oh, I was reading something about it just yesterday.
I am Archer Connaught. We talked about it in the car, don't you remember?
Keep the mind free of trivia. Unclog the mental pores. I find liquor helps.
Look, what we want to know is, was it a legal ceremony at the time, or was it a trick?
A trick? You mean someone would pay me to fake a ceremony? Why, I'd punch him right in the snoot.
Why, if a woman suggested it.
That would be cute. Harvey had that happen to him one time.
You're Harvey.
Are you positive about that? That seems to be up to you.
Look, Harvey or Howard or whatever his name was, is he still alive?
No. Dead. Cirrhosis of the liver. He had this drinking problem. Well, now to find a better equipped bar. It's been a pleasure meeting you, Mrs. Connaught, whichever you are. Do come again. I'd better head him towards Maryland.
Now what do I do? Why did I ever have to get mixed up with literature? Why couldn't I pick up some contemporary, like civil rights?
Now, Darrell, just take it easy.
It's all her fault. I hate her.
Don't lose your temper.
People walk 2 by 2 in the Ark forever.
You're a two, Daryl.
Before you get angry again, I just want to say, you've won. Mr. Bedloe was right. People should be together if they want to be. So, go to Maryland and marry Archer, Mexico, wherever. If you love him, I won't make any trouble. You were quite right. It would only make him hate me, and you can't have that. Not after 30 years. Oh, you can get angry and argue, but you can't hate. There's not enough time left. I hope you live long enough to learn that. I hope the world lives long enough to let you. I also hope you'll all be out of here by the time I get back. And by the way, in case you were wondering, I wouldn't be your age again for anything.
Josie, where are you going?
Swung quietly off into the sunset.
She can't. We face south. Daryl, I'm sorry.
No, you...
Look, Daryl, things aren't turning out quite the way we thought.
I know, I was thinking, well, you were saying.
Well, your father expected any minute.
I know, he wasn't in favor of us going off on Mary. He wasn't really in favor of you borrowing his plane.
Look, I thought maybe you could go back to the hotel, meet your father there, tell him we're just good friends until I get this thing figured out.
That will probably take a while.
Even if Josie signs something, it could even be a year.
At least, I do have my graduate work to finish.
Of course. Daryl, we're both trying to get out of it, aren't we?
It's so terrible.
No, it's not. Thank you, Daryl. It's been fun.
You don't love me, not even a little bit?
Love the idea of you. I think any man my age would. Only it doesn't survive in the real world of contracts and lawyers and fathers.
And medicine tests, and wedding certificates, special diets. You know, I'm looking at you right now. You're as far away as that afternoon you gave the lecture.
A week ago today. What'll happen to you? Now, I mean.
Maybe I'll get my diary up to date. Make it into a bestseller.
You'd write about this?
Why not, won't you?
Probably. Daryl, we're such monsters. When did you know?
When you look at her, you're in love with her, aren't you?
Don't be ridiculous. Who could possibly be in love with somebody that age? I may never forgive that silence.
Chauffeur service to the city is now departing.
Got room for one more? Goodbye, Archie. Even if I don't get a bestseller, we found it accepted for my graduate work, aren't you? Mr. Hackaday, you wouldn't mind discussing those movie rights over dinner, would you?
Mr. Hackaday's tied up for dinner. And a movie afterwards. A first run movie.
Unless there's a line. I don't stand in line for anybody.
Then we'll go back to your apartment in Nap. You haven't got my signature on that release, have you?
Where did you say we could drop you?
Just any place off the bridge.
After all, isn't there something a little suspicious about a man my age who's never been married?
If nothing else, I can always pretend you were the love of my life. I wonder if yours was.
Miss Kennard? Kate?
In a moment. Please.
I'll put her in the back seat.
You like him?
I don't know. I only just met him yesterday. I can only just remember to keep my mouth shut.
You'll remember. There's a lot of your mother in you.
Will you be here when I get back?
I may be. Would you mind?
That depends.
On me or Josie?
I have something to tell you about Mother. She knows where your marriage certificate is. She's known all along. It's in her jewelry box, top shelf.
Why, that tricky, conniving. But why?
Oh, I don't know. I think maybe she was afraid you never really would have asked her to marry her. How many years ago was it?
Kate, you run along. I have a few words to say to your mother.
Just make sure they're the right ones. It's something to be wanted
once. Kate told me.
Of course. Why didn't I think? Well, why didn't Kate say something? I'll give it to Hazel. She'll make an arrangement.
You stay put.
But Daryl,
She's gone. God, what a relief. I feel like I've been holding in my stomach for a month. Listen, you sit down right now and you listen to me.
there's no need to shout, Archer.
Look, in all this mess, one thing seems reasonably clear. I didn't really love Daryl, and I guess I do love you.
One of the obituaries said you never could write a convincing love scene. That is what this is, isn't it?
Will you please be quiet for just 1 minute and listen? Now, Kate said you always felt you'd been cheated out of a real proposal. It was real, Josie, but just in case, I'd like to ask you again. Josie, will you marry me?
No, Archer.
No!
No. Why should I?
You mean we're already married?
I didn't say that. I just don't want to marry you now. I've had that.
Well, then what do you want?
I rather like being your widow. But I don't suppose I could very well ask you to die just for me. I think we'd better just settle for being friends. Where will you go now? Mexico?
Not much point, is there?
You could stay on here. Your room's all ready. It might be good for the children. Merrill could use a father. I've been very disappointed in his behavior.
You mean back to living in sin?
Isn't that being just a little optimistic?
Damn it, Josie, Chateaubriand fathered his last child at 80.
I doubt that report came from Mrs. Chateaubriand.
Did you plan this from the beginning?
Thank you. I'm not that clever.
I wonder. I had this secret feeling that all these years you've been smarter than me. And now you finally got me exactly where you want.
Where did you want to end, Archer? Did you ever know?
I'd like to think it was right here in this room, just the two of us.
It's become a very attractive room over the years. You might just get to like it.
You haven't won yet. I may still wander up.
The door is still open.
It's no fun when the door is open. Or have you always known that, too? Well, Josie, now that it's over, what really was the truth?
No matter what I told you, Archer, you wouldn't really believe me, would you?
Probably not. Only what happens now?
Nothing. Isn't it peaceful?
Nothing. Don't be too sure.